Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathryn if you're new here. Today's video is a kitchen makeover / transformation. My husband and I purchased our home a little over a year and a half ago, and the very first thing that we did when stepping foot into our new home was worked on the kitchen. I don't have too much footage of how the house looked during that time, but I do have this really quick clip. It was really orange, really brown, very muted and dated. So the very first thing that we did was got the walls painted, removed the backsplash, and also installed all new appliances, which gave the kitchen a really nice facelift, and we were satisfied with it for the time being and started working on other parts of our house. But recently, stepping into my kitchen didn't make me feel good about the space. So I started researching different countertops and flooring options. And of course, everything that I loved is back ordered until later in the year. So I decided that in the meantime, I could do some DIY projects to just help bring the kitchen up a little bit. Originally, this wasn't meant to be a video. I actually started transforming the kitchen prior to picking up the camera, but I did stop about halfway through. So the only thing you guys are really gonna miss out on is me painting my lower cabinets, working on my counters a little bit, and I think installing my faucet. But everything else I do with you guys on camera, and it is truly an amazing experience to experience. Of course, watch the video, let me know your thoughts, and I'm sure now y'all are ready to just get into it. So of course, keep watching. To start the second half of this project, the first thing that I needed to finish was covering my counters. I saved this L-shaped corner for last because it was the largest and most intimidating, but what helped me was after measuring out the amount of contact paper I needed, I cut it down into smaller sections and applied it piece by piece. This was a pretty straightforward process. I used a gift card to smooth out all of the air bubbles and an X-Acto knife to clean up the edges. Since I applied this contact paper in sections, there was a bit of a gap between the pieces. In order to correct this, I grabbed some caulk that I had from a previous home project and used it to fill the space. Of course, if you are renting and applying this contact paper, do not use the caulk. I personally will be throwing out my countertops when the new ones come in. So if you do own your home, feel free to use caulk to fix your mistakes, but if not, I would skip it. The next thing that I needed to do was install this sink plate underneath our new faucet. Our previous faucet was a standard builder's grade one that the previous owner never updated, and I was under the impression that I would be able to reuse that old sink plate, but I couldn't. So I did have to wait a few days after installing the new faucet to get this sink plate in the mail to install it and have everything looking the way it's supposed to. The next day, I got started on the most tedious part of this project, which was painting the cabinets. I began by removing the hardware and all of the doors. After that, I labeled all of the cabinet doors so that I will put them back in their correct spots later in the video. I then took all of the screws, brackets, and additional hardware and put it in a Ziploc bag for safekeeping. I also went ahead and removed all of the knobs and tossed those because I was no longer going to need them. Once the cabinet doors were completely stripped down, I took them to my garage to prepare them for the paint. So I used a disinfectant spray to wipe down the surface. And then I grabbed this wood filler to fill in those holes where the previous knobs were. I'm going to drill some new holes in these doors to change the knob placement. This wood filler takes about 2 hours to dry, so while I waited on that, I went inside and started working on the cabinet frame. So I grabbed this sanding block and began to sand the surface so that the paint would adhere a bit better and last a lot longer. I then grabbed this disinfectant wipe to remove any additional dirt, dust, debris, all that. The paint that I used for this project is the Valspar Ultra Interior Paint and Primer. This is the only paint that I use when it comes to home projects. It has a recoat time of 4 to 6 hours, which makes your projects go by super quickly. For my cabinets, I did choose a satin finish. I felt like a semi-gloss or gloss would be a bit too shiny, and anything duller than satin would be hard to keep clean and to wipe down, so this was the best option for me. I first grabbed a brush to reach all of the corners and crevices, and I followed that with this mini roller to smooth out any paint from the brush and to also give the frame a nice, smooth, even first coat of paint. After applying the first coat of paint on the cabinet frame, I needed to wait a minimum of 4 hours for the second coat. During that time, I took a lunch break, and by the time I finished eating, the wood filler on the cabinet doors was completely dry and ready to be sanded. And similar to the cabinet frame, I first used a brush to flood all of the corners and tight spots on the doors, and then followed with the roller to smooth everything out and give it a nice even coat. And with the quick recoat time of that Valspar paint, I was able to do 2 layers of paint on both the front and back side of the cabinet doors, as well as do that second coat on the cabinet frame, all within 1 day. The next morning, I was super exhausted and didn't want to do anything associated with the cabinets, so I decided to work on my laundry room door. The previous owner had this chalkboard paint on the door, and while it was a good idea in theory, it was never something that I wanted to use, so I was ready to see it go. I first sanded down the door, wiped away any remaining dust, and then grabbed this Rustoleum cabinet and trim paint in the shade Linen White. Similar to the cabinets, I first flooded all the hard to reach spots and then used a roller to roll the rest. This paint has a recoat time of only 2 to 4 hours, so I was able to do 2 coats of paint on this door and replace all of the hardware all within a couple of hours. After finishing the laundry room door and giving myself several pep talks, I finally motivated myself to start reattaching the cabinet doors. But before fully closing them, I grabbed these Scotch felt bumpers. While the doors and frame are dry to the touch, they are still curing. To prevent the paint from sticking and possibly peeling, these were a must. Once the cabinet doors were able to be fully closed, I grabbed this knob and pull template along with this drill bit to drill new holes for my new hardware. While I worked my way around the kitchen with that, I called my husband in to work on our ceiling. So a couple of months back, we had a plumber come in to work on our upstairs bathroom, and they ended up flooding the house. So we had this really nasty looking water stain that needed to be covered up. I had some leftover Valspar Ultra paint from a previous home project in a eggshell finish, which was perfect for painting my ceiling. They do say to use flat, but eggshell was close enough, and to me, it was a pretty good match. The next day we worked on replacing this pendant light. I wanted something with more bulbs to brighten up the room. So we shut off the power in the house, and before my husband left for work, he did take this light down for me. So I was able to easily go in, do a little bit of rewiring, hung up the new light fixture, and this ultimately brought the entire kitchen to life. Now time for my favorite part of this project. I first hung up a few things on the wall. I started with this print that I found from Amazon. It was really pretty and added a lot of personality to this space. I then added a new hand soap, and I thought it fit perfectly with all of my stainless steel. I had a little bit of extra wall space beside my refrigerator and hung up this clock, and this really added a new level of sophistication to the room. To bring some color to the space, I added these long stem roses to a glass vase, and then I started working on my counters. I found this really nice ceramic utensil holder at Target and filled it with all of my cooking ware. These silver and gold ones are from CB2 and they are so beautiful. And then right beside that, I put my KitchenAid back in its usual corner. After replacing my knife set, I noticed this really hideous telephone jack that I failed to buy a new outlet cover for. So I got creative and grabbed a coffee table book and propped it against it to conceal it. And in front of that, I put my Snoop Dogg cookbook along with a faux flower arrangement to tie in the red from the table and to also add a little color to this space as well. I usually keep my paper towel holder right next to my sink on my island, but I wanted to free up some counter space, so I installed this floating paper towel rack. And then after that, I worked on my coffee and beverage station. So I put all of my appliances back in their place, added my K-Pod carousel, and then I grabbed this perfume tray from my beauty room and repurposed it for a coffee sauce and syrup tray. And I love the touch of gold and warmth that it added to the space. So I had this beautiful silver and gold salt and pepper grinder set from CB2 to match my utensils. Placed that on my breakfast table along with a candle. And then I also added another candle to my island. In the future, I think I may put a fruit bowl here, but I temporarily just placed this candle and its holder to tie in a little bit more of that gold. And that was the last touch before the final reveal. So that was the complete transformation. I hope you all enjoyed this video. There are still a few things I want to do. I'm thinking about adding some decor on top of my uppers and also adding maybe like a runner rug in front of my sink, but things like that will come in time. I do plan on organizing the inside of my cabinets now. The outside of the cabinets are looking good, so let me know if you guys want to see that in a video. So again, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and of course I will see you in my next one.